If digital marketing is part of your business, then you've probably noticed that it's gotten a lot more expensive. Customer acquisition costs have gotten so high that it's been driving digital brands to open physical stores, which is now seen as the less expensive way to attract new customers. Is it just that the price per click is higher, or has the performance, or conversion rate as it's called, gotten worse? And what can marketers do to improve both conversion and return on their investment in digital marketing? Hi, I'm Jane Singer, and thanks for joining me here today on A Seat at the Table. It's great to have your company. You're an important part of our global community, which has now grown to include 96 countries. I hope that you're enjoying listening to the many outstanding people who are guests on the show. I always learn so much from each person, and I hope you do too. We're going to be adding a new feature to this program, and I'll be telling you more about it at the end of the podcast. Today I'm speaking with John Readman, founder and product owner at Ask BOSCO. He's worked with some of the world's largest brands, including Asos, Pepsi, BMW, Superdry, Honda, HP, Toyota, Argos, and Sigma Sports, helping them shape their online proposition and increase their e-commerce performance. In this episode of A Seat at the Table, John talks about why the money is in the conversion, not the clicks, how competing for keywords is helping Google and Facebook, not you, why every brand needs a marketplace strategy, and how predictive marketing is helping brands maximize the return on their digital marketing spend. Before we get started, if you're a supply chain executive who'd like to finally put an end to information overload and get a simple, concise summary of key market developments and shifts, then the current situation in sourcing is exactly what you're looking for. To get immediate access, head on over to thecurrentsituation.net. That's thecurrentsituation.net, where you can get all of the details. Now let's learn from John how to start getting a better return on our digital marketing. John, I'm so happy to finally have you on the show because your expertise is in digital marketing. And with the explosion of e-commerce, I think that everybody wants to in some way add an e-commerce component if they're not already strictly e-commerce. But at the same time, a lot of people are struggling with the return on investment that they're getting on their marketing. So, digital marketing started off easy, and suddenly it's gotten a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive. Perhaps you could share some of your insights, what you've seen with many of the clients that you've worked with, what's working, what's not working, what people need to do.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Jane. It's like, I think over the last 5 or 10 years, performance marketing people have seen is relatively easy. So they sort of pay some money, do some Google search ads or do some Google shopping ads and PPC or whatever it is, and they get their return on investment. As it's got more and more competitive, it's getting harder. And the ultimate people who are winning, I think, are then the Googles and the Facebooks or the Twitters and TikToks of the world, and the big agency platforms or the big networks. They're the ones making all the money. And it's getting more and more complicated if you are someone trying to sell things online of, well, where should I be investing my money? What does good look like? And as it gets more and more competitive, the cost per clicks are going up because most of these systems are sort of like an auction-based system. It's getting harder. And I think the recent sort of pandemic has sort of really put a lens on this and accelerated people's move into digital. It's accelerated people's shopping habits online. So the demand's gone up, and in certain instances, the stores were closed, so people could only buy online. So yeah, it's definitely polarized the whole situation. And we're seeing some retailers struggling in certain very competitive sectors to make the money out of certain keywords on Google now. So they're having to look for alternative platforms because certainly the generic broad keywords for their products aren't working on Google anymore because it's too expensive. So there's sort of, I'd say, a rationalization in the market over time. But as long as somebody's willing to pay, then Google will still charge. And I think Google, the way their auction works is it's designed to maximize profit for Google. I think sometimes people forget that Google is a for-profit business and they make a huge amount of money, but it's also helped be a lifeline for many businesses who needed to get traffic to their websites.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Google has been a blessing for most. And now, like you said, it's getting expensive. Before we move on, you said, what does good look like? At the moment, how do you define good?
Well, I suppose that's quite subjective depending on the business. And I think some companies most companies would look at a return on advertising spend. Hopefully they're measuring something, right? In an ideal world, you'd be looking at a sort of margin-based model. But let's just take it at a high level. Somebody might be looking at a return on advertising spend. And I suppose it really depends on how much margin you have in your products, what good looks like. So it's very difficult to say, right, well, we might need a 10. For every pound I spend, I want £10 back. Yeah, you might want that if you've got a low margin product. But if you've got a high margin product where you can afford to give more away, you might say, well, I just need a return of 3 or 2 or something. But it really depends. But I think the most important thing is people should be making sure they're tracking it all properly. One thing we see a lot is people are sort of putting money in one end and money's coming out the other end, but they're not really measuring what campaigns and which keywords are actually driving the performance. They're just looking at the total in and total out. Right? And a lot of people new to this maybe haven't enabled the e-commerce tracking, maybe haven't gone through and set up all the tagging and tracking properly. So then when it comes around to trying to optimize, it's really tricky and hard because actually they haven't got the data linked. So they can't actually understand which campaign drove what sales. They just know PPC did this or Facebook did that. So I think good looks different for many, many different businesses. People need to think about within their business, how much you're willing to pay to attract a new customer or to make a sale. I think that's really where the conversation needs to start. And once they understand that, then they can start building out budgets and scaling. And I also sort of think sometimes people go, right, I've got $10,000 or I've got $50,000 and I want to get some more customers. And I think sometimes that's the wrong question, because actually a better question is, if I really understand the metrics of my business, if I should have an unlimited budget if I keep getting new customers. So I should almost have, every time I spend a dollar, I get $10 back. Well, I'll keep spending $1, right? Maybe before people start just switching on loads of advertising spend with Google and Facebook, is they actually take a step back and go, right, I'm really going to try and understand the metrics of what can we afford here? What's our conversion rate on a website? How much traffic, how many clicks do we need to make a sale? And really understanding the component parts of the metrics. And then they can start building out a plan. So then I suppose then with a caveat and a bit of a risk here is when you start getting good at this, it's very easy to get addicted to just one channel, right? Well, we've got this Google search or this Google shopping, we've got it sorted, and it's very difficult to go, right, well, we're just going to keep putting dollars in the top here, and we don't have to worry about anything else. But then there could be a change in the tracking, there could be a change in competition, there could be a change in the cost, there could be a change in Google's clever black box smart shopping or whatever it is. And I do think some retailers have become very reliant on one single channel. And I do think I'm focusing on that bottom of funnel last click. So everybody's fighting over this last click. So if somebody's trying to buy, I don't know, a new TV, and they might start off and go, I don't know, 42-inch flat screen TV. And then by the time they get down to the exact search, it might be Samsung 42-inch flat screen TV or whatever. That's very competitive, but everybody's fighting over those clicks. And I think one thing we need to be thinking about is that sort of full funnel. It's like what channel and what tactic is appropriate at what stage in the buyer's journey. And I think everybody is still thinking, well, I'm just going to chuck money at this to win that last click. And actually, it's often a lot more expensive to win the last click, but it's more likely to convert. So I suppose the other bit I often talk about, Jane, is have the mathematicians taken over marketing? And I think there's been a lot of that over the last 15, 20 years because it has been so numbers and performance driven. But one thing I think we will see a comeback, and you're sort of seeing this with things like TikTok and things like user-generated content, is there going to be a comeback for the creatives? And I think there's a real skill set missing, which is really good copywriting. And I think that's an art that seems to have been lost over time. Everybody's just, well, give me the spreadsheet. How much money do we spend? How much money do we get back? And people are less investing above the above at the top of the funnel. So that was a long way to answer your question. Sorry.
No, I think
get quite excited about these things.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's something that so many people have jumped into, and in some ways you can get started for a very low investment, relatively speaking. So it lures people in, and then of course it can become massively expensive depending upon, like you said, how you manage it. From your experience nowadays, and I know it varies per brand and per product, but roughly in digital marketing, roughly what are acquisition costs per customer, or CAC?
We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
I think that question is too hard to answer. But what I could talk about is conversion rates and click-through rates and things like that.
Okay.
So a good conversion rate would be, say, 2 or 3%, which everybody thinks sounds really low. So then you need 100 clicks on your website to say make 2 sales. And then we've got extremes. So on one, you might have a cost per click of 50p. And if you need 100 clicks, so you need to spend $5 to get a transaction, right? So if you're selling a $2 item, that is not going to work. Right. So it's about understanding. So again, a lot of companies don't filter out the low price point products, or they need to think about the actual, it's almost at a product level. Can we afford to advertise these on Google or not? But the other things to sort of think about, and I suppose that's exactly the right question, is what is my customer acquisition cost or my cost of sale? It's absolutely the right maths to be trying to understand, but it really depends on what they're selling. But I think that the point of all of this, though, is if your conversion rate is 2%, if you can improve that by another 0.5% to make it 2.5, that massively affects the performance of your budgets and the performance of your overall website. And I think what tends to happen, and you see this a lot with people relatively even experienced in digital and performance marketing, is they get obsessed with acquiring traffic. Right, we need more traffic. We need more traffic. Right, we need more efficient traffic. We need more affordable traffic. It's all about traffic. I don't want to be number one on SEO for this. I want to chuck more money at Google. And actually, in a lot of organizations I've spoken to over the years, there isn't somebody in the company who owns the conversion rate number, and they're not doing things on a daily and weekly basis to improve conversion rate. But actually, there should be somebody in a company whose job it is to own that conversion rate and be passionate about, right, we're currently at 2% for direct traffic, we're at 3% for PPC traffic, but we're at 1.5 for SEO. And actually, by category, it changes like this. And there's a whole science behind it, but there's also a huge amount of subjective testing required, because some of it will be, if the buy button's red or if the buy button's green, what does that affect? So we should constantly be testing the landing pages or the product pages. And people see that as hard work, and it's actually just easier to get more traffic. But actually, but actually the smart money would be investing in conversion rate optimization and really thinking about, well, if we do have 10,000 users a day on the website, if we could just convert an extra 0.5%, that would be a phenomenal growth within our business. I mean, we'd have to potentially spend less with Google. I think it's more about a percentage cost of sale of what's acceptable to your business. Is that 20%? What is it? It depends from company to company. The ones that I think which makes it harder as well, so bringing it back to this point, is if you retail someone else's products, you've obviously got a lot less margin and it's harder. But you can potentially get a bigger basket value because you've got more different products to sell. So let's say, I don't know, a department store, or a Walmart or a Target or someone who've got lots of different things. They're better, though, selling their own brand stuff because they've got more margin. But then if you were a brand like, I don't know, a Levi's selling jeans direct, right, they've got more margin than someone else selling the same pair of jeans, but is a department store, right? So it's and as the brands start selling direct to consumer more and more and more, which we're seeing. So there's companies like that said, oh, we're always going to sell through the retailers and we're going to let the stores sell it. Now going direct, everybody's going direct. Yes. It gets more and more competitive, but also they potentially got more margin. So they can be more aggressive with their budgets on advertising. And also, even if they are selling at list price, with the same price as everybody else, they can afford to pay more for that traffic because they've got more. So it's going to be interesting to see how retail plays out. But my view, ultimately, which I think whether you love Amazon or hate it, what people really need to think about in all of this is the customer experience of how easy it is to shop on your website. The reason Amazon wins is it's like frictionless commerce. I know if I go on to Amazon, and there's probably people listening to this who've all bought something from Amazon today or yesterday, it wasn't necessarily the cheapest product, but they didn't have to type anything in. They could press a button and they knew it would arrive tomorrow or the day after or whenever. Where we are in the UK, we're in an area where they're testing out in the UK 1 hour delivery. Wow. So I can order, and they're doing groceries as well now. So I could order in theory some beer and some glasses to drink the beer out as I leave the office. And by the time I get home, the beer has arrived and the glasses have arrived and the beer is cold.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So if you think about that as an experience, it's about the convenience, seamless. And I think the frustrating thing for people trying to compete online is Amazon sort of has set the bar of what normal looks like. Right, so they then expect you to be as good as Amazon, and actually that's really hard because you don't have a warehouse around the corner from everybody, and you can't deliver everything within an hour. But it's so then this goes back to the point which we were talking about copywriting and creative, is where's the value of the brand? And I think going forward, people might buy into a brand experience rather than it just being a convenience experience, and that depends on the purchase you're making. If it's just beer and they've got the brand I want, it might be a convenience purchase. But if it's maybe a high value clothing item or a sporting item or a holiday where you're making a considered purchase, people might spend more time considering the brand. But Amazon and people's experience ultimately will dictate how well you succeed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I am a big Amazon shopper myself, and it's not that I don't like going to stores, but it is very convenient for things. I would say if I can't get it near me in a store, yeah, the first stop is Amazon. And you're right, the user experience is frictionless. It's very fast. You have tremendous selection. Delivery is free and fast. And if you do have a problem, they do have good customer service. So it's very difficult to not want to go there.
Yeah, and if you're not happy, you just send it back and they give you your money back. It's like, it's just super easy to transact with. It's like, people need to look at their business and say, well, if we're not going to compete with Amazon, why should someone shop with us?
Right.
So what is our point of difference? Is it we're going to be cheaper? Is it we're going to be better? Is it we're going to be more good for the planet? Is it we're going to do something for charity? Is it about purpose? Is it about quality? Or is it you can't get our stuff on Amazon? There's a lot of brands still saying they're never going to go on Amazon. All right. And my view of the world is it's not a case of whether or not, I think it's a case of you need an Amazon plan. Yes. Right? And you need to understand how you're going to engage with this, because there's a lot of customers now, like you do and I do, go onto Amazon without even looking on Google.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So I didn't even Google stuff, but I went onto Amazon and I just found, and then I'm looking based on reviews and based on who can get it to me quickly. I'm not really often looking on price. So it's not really about the price anymore. It's about convenience. So I think retailers need to understand when they're looking at their digital marketing is where does Amazon fit in? But also there's all these new marketplaces coming along. So Jet, Target, everybody's starting to create more and more marketplaces. So it's like, what's our marketplace strategy and how are we going to play in that world? Because you could be a very successful retailer and maybe decide, or a brand who maybe decides their direct to consumer model is not to have their own website and just sell on marketplaces.
Right.
And we see quite a lot of brands like that in Europe who've created a brand just to sell on the marketplaces because they don't want the overhead of building and maintaining a website, having all the warehousing and logistics. They just pay a premium to someone else to do that. So everybody needs an Amazon plan. And the plan might be to do nothing, but I probably would question that plan and say that's slightly naive.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think these big platforms, Amazon, like you said, set the standard, and then other players have come in that have the power to be able to do something that is along the lines of what Amazon is doing, maybe not exactly. It becomes very difficult, like you said, for anyone who doesn't have a product that's incredibly unique and very desirable.
Amazon are trialing in the UK selling cars, right?
Really?
So with Volvo, right? Amazon are going to sell you everything, right? So Amazon owns your customers. So I think, I think a lot of people in fashion are like, well, we don't want our brand on Amazon. It devalues our brand. And I'm like, well, if your customer's there and they're looking and your competitors, and I think as soon as your competitors start appearing there, you need to be ready.
Right.
And I do think there's a lot of fashion brands that think Amazon doesn't apply to them. And I personally think that's risky and is a potential mistake, and you're going to miss out on a load of market. And if you get your content right now, I don't know if you there's a load of opportunity within the A+ content pages, and you can make it look and feel like a brand experience. It doesn't just have to be the sort of yellow and green. You can make it look good, and you can include a load of video, and you can make it a better experience. But I think fashion is one of those areas that are still in denial, I would say. I don't know what you think, but I think certainly luxury fashion especially.
I think that for a lot of fashion, yes, Amazon has a reputation as the place you go for cheap things with regard to fashion. So people feel that I don't want to be in that environment, and I understand that. And I think that also there's been a lot of issues around fakes. So people say, I'm selling, my real product, and then there's all these guys selling knockoffs, and they're selling it cheaper, and it just becomes very confusing for the consumer, and it becomes, very problematic in terms of managing IP. So if we say we're not on Amazon at all, theoretically, consumers will know that if you're buying our product on Amazon, it's probably not our product. And there's probably other reasons as well. But I think that...
But I think that's the interesting, it's a very, very valid point. But if you are not there, you don't have the ability to own and control your brand. You then let someone else potentially pass off as your brand. And I think that's the challenge, whereas there's ways to make it feel authentic and be authentic, not feel authentic, be authentic. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. People's historical approach has been Amazon's cheap, or it's for utility type products, books, cookware, etc., kitchen appliances, and it's not necessarily for fashion. But I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a big change as the quality of the imagery and the shopping experience changes. People need to think more about that. We got carried away with Amazon. You were asking about just general digital marketing before. Sorry.
No, it's interesting. I mean, when you can't talk about digital marketing or online e-commerce without bringing up Amazon, you'd be remiss in not understanding the incredible role that they play, the multidimensional role that they play. Now, when you're looking at brands, and like you said earlier, not most brands, but many, many, many brands are looking to sell direct to consumers. That's become a very big strategy. And for some, that's going to be successful, and for others, it may or may not be as successful. What do you see as the pros and cons of that?
I think the biggest pro, if you're a brand, is you can own the customer relationship and the data. Right? So if you're a brand, currently you might sell your products to Neiman Marcus and they then sell them to the customer, so they own the customer. Whereas if you're a brand and you sell them direct to the customer, you now own the customer, so you own that customer relationship. You can then get data on the customer. You can then ask them and learn about them, right? What products should we do next? And you can start building up a profile of your customer and your audience. Because, some of the big consumer goods brands are still paying the supermarkets and the big retailers to get data back on their own customers.
Right.
All right. That's a thing. There's a huge business in that. So the big pros for a brand is data,
Right.
customer feedback, owning that customer journey. And I think also just having that direct conversation with the customers. I'd say the big cons and things against it, logistics, the logistics challenge of delivery. So you need probably now, I suppose what's come in a lot, Jane, is there's a lot of third-party logistics companies that can make that a lot easier for you now. But it's like, do you have to have your own warehouse? How do you do that? It's one thing sending a pallet of garments to a department store who then put them on the shelves and then sell them, versus having to send individual, I don't know, shirts or pants or whatever to individual customers. It's a big difference and it's harder. And then on top of that, you've got to manage the returns, right? So you go from being a brand that delivers to people who sell your stuff to being a brand who actually has to deal with the end customer, and people complain, people send things back. So
Right.
I would say there's a huge amount of thought that needs to go into that process. And then I suppose the other one is the marketing costs, because currently they might have some brand marketing going on anywhere, but they probably then need to think about performance marketing to actually drive sales, rather than just necessarily above the line billboards, TV, all of that, which historically they'll have a big line of budget for. They probably need to think about some more specific direct response performance marketing, which maybe they have no experience of. But yeah, that's my view. But I think you only have to look at the car market. If you look at what Tesla's done in disrupting a market,
Right. Yeah.
No car dealerships, no car salesperson's commission. You have to buy your car direct, and everybody buys it online. Even if you buy it in store, you go onto the website, you log in yourself, and you buy it on their iPad, but in your name. So it's just completely disintermediated the whole national franchise dealer network and system and reinvented. And I think in fashion, that's also going to happen over time. You're going to get fashion brands where you can only get their product on their website. In fact, there's brands already coming, like new brands will be coming, and you can't get it anywhere else. But yeah, I think it's hopefully the winner's the consumer, because they get better choice, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that ultimately is the end goal. Now, if you are a department store or a multi-brand store, how do you fit into that? In other words, if everybody is moving towards going direct for all the reasons that you put forward, is there an opportunity for people who are offering a multi-brand experience?
So I absolutely think there is, because, and again, I think you've just got to look at Amazon. Amazon's the world's biggest department store, right?
It's an interesting way to frame it, but yes.
Yeah, it is, right? And I can go onto Amazon, I could buy, I don't know, a pair of trainers, I could buy some kitchen scales, I could buy some bath soap, all in the same basket in the same transaction. Boom, right? And I think there's still, so if you were, I don't know, a big department store, there is an element of two things, I would say. One is the convenience of being able to buy multiple products. But if you think about fashion, right, I might be trying to create a look, or I might be trying to create an outfit for an occasion, and I might not want all the things from the same brand.
Right.
Yeah. So I might want to decide I want a jacket from one brand, I want a shirt from another brand, I want a pair of pants from another brand, I want a pair of trainers from another brand, or a pair of shoes. And I don't want to go to 7 websites and make 7 different orders, right? So I think there will always be a place for people who can curate a look or a collection and get that across in their marketing and messaging. And why don't you buy them both here? All right, so they're able to, I suppose, merchandise and cross-sell and upsell in some creative way will still give you an edge over the brand selling direct.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And I would agree that there is a customer who definitely likes the experience of having things curated for them and wants to see that more than just see a bunch of products from a brand. Now, you mentioned predictive marketing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how people can use that to their advantage?
Yeah, so we talked at the beginning about how everybody can get addicted to Google. I think, and we talked about you've got to get everything tracked and make sure you're tracking the right things in the right order. So what we try and help retailers specifically do is predict where to spend your next dollar, right? Because if you were to, Jane, if you were to phone, so if you're a retailer and you were to phone up Google and say, Google, where should I spend my next dollar? I'm pretty certain Google would say, spend it with Google. Right, because that's what they'll say, and it would be the same for Facebook, or it would be the same for TikTok, or Amazon, or Twitter, right? So if you're a retailer trying to make decisions about where to spend your money, it's hard, right? And then you might have an agency. I really trust my agency; they're excellent. And the agency, however, you might go to your agency and say, I've got an extra $50,000 to invest in marketing this month. Where should we spend it? And they would say, well, what you hope they might say is, let's go away, look at the data, and we'll come back with an answer. But in reality, they might do is look around the office and go, right, who's got some free time? Right? The Facebook team have got some time. Let's sell them some Facebook. Right? So it's challenging a world where nobody's actually making the decision based on what's good for you as a retailer or a brand. There's a biased decision on what's good for them to sell to you. Right?
Yeah.
So I just genuinely don't believe we'll ever end up in a world where Google will tell you to spend money on Facebook. Right. I just don't think that's going to happen. So what we've done is I wanted to help retailers make better decisions. So we built a predictive analytics dashboard that connects all your marketing channels into one place. It then helps you make better decisions by having this visibility of everything in one channel. And then it will forecast and predict what you should do next. And I think depending on what you're trying to achieve. So if you want to get more new customers, or you want to increase average order value, or you want to get more traffic to the website, there might be different levers you need to pull, or different channels you need to optimize. And again, there's just so much maths and data out there. Even if you're really good at your math, it's hard to work this stuff out. So what our technology and what we've been working with retailers over many years trying to understand is, well, where is the sweet spot of opportunity? So, and then what we do is we surface that within our predictive analytics model and say, what you should do this morning, Jane, is you should be looking at this Facebook campaign versus this Google campaign and decide where to spend your money. And hopefully it enables people to make better decisions, allocate budgets in the right place for maximum performance. And it's not fully automated. I don't believe in letting the robots and the AI take over the world just yet. But what it is doing is using machine learning and artificial intelligence to help you make quicker and better decisions from this vast sea of data that we all have. And we might just look and go, it's just, right, well, I'll just tweak that a bit, and see what happens. Whereas what this does is say, well, if we move that one and that one, this is what's going to happen. So it predicts the future for you. So and when you're talking, as we're talking about at the beginning, Jane, is the margins are tight. It's very competitive, right? So what you need, and sports like NASCAR and Formula One and IndyCar and NASA have been using tools like this for years, right? Yeah, so this stuff has always existed. It's just never been affordable to do it within retail. However, with the power now of big computer and big data, we can now use this to help us make, and as it's getting more and more competitive, if you can have that edge on your side so you can make better, more profitable decisions, and then hopefully it gives you a bit of a competitive advantage.
It's interesting that you say that you haven't fully automated all of it, because so many people look to systems that are completely automated, whereas you're using these data analytics just to provide you with better predictions, but you still have to use your own judgment and intuition, so to speak.
Someone described our product as a decision intelligence product the other day.
Right, interesting.
And I was like, well, yeah, that's it. We help you make better decisions using artificial intelligence, because ultimately there might be a thing about stock, there might be a thing about stock or product availability or price point, or there might be some competitive other reason. And I also believe in that sort of bid optimization end of the funnel. I think the platforms are always going to be better at bid optimization. Right? Facebook is going to be better at understanding the Facebook algorithm than I could ever be. Google is going to be better at understanding the Google search auction better than I ever will be. However, Google's not going to learn Facebook, and Facebook's not going to learn Google. So if I can work out the Venn diagram of where the gaps are, and where the opportunities lie for a brand, I believe that's so. We almost want to get to this place where we become like the trip advisor for digital marketing data, where people go, well, I trust that because Bosco says we should do this, this, or this. Or an agency might even be pitching saying, well, we use the Bosco data because it means we can free up our time to work on the campaign rather than digging around in the data. So you can trust us that we're going to be spending our time in the right area. So that's sort of how we see. But yeah, I don't think we don't believe fully automated is the answer just yet, because something could just keep running away and spending your money, and you're not in control of it.
It's an interesting point, and I think that I'm hearing that more and more from people saying that, yes, the automation is really good. Yes, the AI, the machine learning, everything is really, really good, but you still need that human element that's the key differentiator from everybody else. All the other things are tools, but the tools need to be in the hands of someone who's smart.
Yeah, it needs to be to make better decisions, and then what the tool can then do is learn. Well, when that happened, you did that, and when that happened, and then it hopefully can start making better recommendations and better insights over time. In my opinion, I don't think we're ready yet for it to be fully automated. Marketing still needs clever people and smart people.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and you need that creative element as well, because otherwise every campaign will start to look like every other campaign. You chase the one that's doing well, but then you homogenize, in a sense, your brand, and that becomes a problem in its own. Well, John, you've shared so many great insights, and I know I've learned a tremendous amount. Where can people find you?
So it's email. I'm John, John, at modo25.com. Or our technology is Ask BOSCO, BOSCO.io, or the agency services that use Bosco. So we provide Bosco as a platform to companies and agencies, or people can get Bosco with a service layer on top, which is modo25.com, or they can just look me up, John Readman, on LinkedIn. And what we're doing at the moment for anybody who finds us on a podcast is we're offering people a free trial. So I think it's one of those things. If it's any good, people use it. If it's not, they won't. And we're sort of like, well, proof's in the pudding. Plug it in. See if it's interesting. If it's interesting, great. If it's not, then switch it off.
Well, I think that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time. And I think so many people are going to be very interested in a tool like what you're offering at Bosco. I mean, everybody right now is really struggling with getting digital marketing right and being able to control those costs.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jane. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. And thank you. Thanks again.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Seat at the Table. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, we're adding a new feature. If you've ever listened to a podcast and thought, I have a question, well, now you can ask. We'll be letting you know about upcoming guests on our show, and you can send in your questions. Also, you can ask questions after the show, and we'll forward them to our guests for feedback. If you'd like to participate or just want to learn more, head on over to our website at seatpodcast.com. That's SEAT podcast.com for all of the details. The links will also be in the show notes. You can also leave any thoughts, feedbacks, or suggestions there, and yes, I will read it. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Jane Singer, and I will see you in our next episode of A Seat at the Table.